I never thought I was going to get divorced. I didn't want to get divorced. I didn't want to be a divorced person. I really didn't want to be a split family.
1 year after his second divorce from Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck has finally broken his silence. And what he revealed isn't the sanitized PR version we've come to expect from Hollywood breakups. This time, he's speaking with a level of honesty that's almost uncomfortable to witness. The carefully constructed narrative about their fairy tale reunion has been replaced with something rawer, something real. He's admitting things that most celebrities would bury under layers of publicist-approved statements and strategic magazine spreads. What drove them apart wasn't a single dramatic moment or scandalous betrayal. It was something far more complex, rooted in patterns he's repeated his entire adult life. The truth is, Ben Affleck finally understands what went wrong, and more importantly, he's owning his part in it. So what exactly did he say? And why does this confession feel different from every other celebrity mea culpa we've seen? The answers reveal not just the end of Bennifer 2.0, but a man who's finally stopped running from himself. The fairy tale reunion. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez first fell for each other in 2002 on the set of Giggly, a movie so spectacularly bad it became a punchline. But their chemistry was undeniable. The media went absolutely feral for them. He proposed with a 6.1-carat pink diamond from Harry Winston that probably cost more than most people's houses. And suddenly, they weren't just Ben and Jennifer anymore. They were Bennifer, a cultural phenomenon that predated the Kardashians turning everything into content. Their planned 2003 wedding got postponed because the media circus became genuinely unmanageable. And by early 2004, they'd called it quits entirely, blaming excessive public attention for killing something that might have survived in private. What followed were their respective wilderness years, though calling them that feels dramatic, considering both remained massively successful. Ben married Jennifer Garner in 2005, just a year after the Bennifer breakup, and they built what looked like a solid life together. 3 kids, a beautiful home, and the kind of normalcy that's rare in Hollywood. He won an Oscar for Argo in 2013, directing himself to the top of his field. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart in ways the public wouldn't fully understand until much later. By 2015, cracks in the Affleck-Garner marriage became impossible to hide. They announced their separation on the same day their 10-year anniversary, a timing that felt deliberately symbolic. What emerged afterward painted a complicated picture. Ben's struggles with alcohol were part of the story, photographed by paparazzi and confirmed by his own later admissions. But there was more. In 2015, reports surfaced about Ben's relationship with their children's nanny, Christine Uzunian. Photos showed them together on a private jet, and the timeline suggested the relationship overlapped with his marriage. Garner was reportedly devastated, having stuck by him through his drinking issues only to discover this betrayal. The divorce wasn't finalized until 2018, a long 3 years of trying to co-parent while processing what had happened. Meanwhile, J.Lo had her own journey through marriage and heartbreak. She married Mark Anthony, had twins, divorced. She got engaged to Alex Rodriguez in what seemed like her own second-chance romance, complete with blended family Instagram posts and coordinated workout videos. Then that fell apart too, right around the time Ben became single again. The timing was almost suspiciously perfect, like the universe was giving them another shot. In 2021, photos surfaced of Ben and J.Lo together in Montana, and the internet collectively lost its mind. This wasn't just any celebrity reunion. This was the couple, the original tabloid obsession, getting back together 2 decades later. The narrative practically wrote itself. They'd both lived full lives, learned hard lessons, and now they were mature enough to make it work. Every red carpet appearance seemed to confirm it. They looked happy, deeply connected, like two people who'd finally figured out what they wanted. In July 2022, they surprised everyone with a late-night Vegas chapel wedding, followed by a lavish ceremony at Ben's Georgia estate. J.Lo even took the Affleck name, something she hadn't done in her previous marriages. This time, everyone believed it would be different. Cracks in the foundation. But almost immediately, something felt off to anyone paying close attention. Photos of Ben with J.Lo started circulating where he looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. The memes wrote themselves. Ben clutching a Dunkin' Donuts coffee while looking existentially exhausted became iconic for all the wrong reasons. Vacation photos from Hawaii showed him scowling while she posed for cameras. The contrast between their energy levels almost painful to watch. His body language screamed discomfort, while hers radiated performance mode, always on, always aware of the lens. The fundamental issue was becoming clear. J.Lo needs the spotlight, like most people need oxygen. After decades in the industry, she's built an empire on being seen, being discussed, being relevant. Her documentary about their relationship, This Is Me, Now a Love Story, turned their romance into content, their private moments into product. Ben appeared in it, visibly uncomfortable, doing what he thought a supportive husband should do. But you could see it in his eyes. This wasn't what he'd signed up for. He'd spent years trying to build a quieter life, protecting his kids from cameras, learning that fame isn't worth the cost it extracts. And here he was again, right back in the blinding center of it all. They bought a massive Beverly Hills mansion for $60 million, then almost immediately listed it again. House hunting together should be exciting for newlyweds, but they could never agree. She wanted showpiece properties where she could entertain and be fabulous. He wanted something more low-key, closer to his kids' school, somewhere that felt like home instead of a museum. These weren't small disagreements about paint colors. These were fundamental incompatibilities about how they wanted to live their lives. By spring 2024, the warning signs were impossible to ignore. They stopped appearing together at major events. At the Met Gala, she went solo while he stayed home. Wedding rings disappeared from their fingers in May, long before any official announcement. Ben quietly rented a place in Brentwood, close to Jennifer Garner and their kids, while J.Lo remained in their shared mansion. She canceled her tour, officially blaming low ticket sales, but the timing suggested more personal turmoil. Their second wedding anniversary on August 20th, 2024 arrived with them living completely separate lives. And on that exact symbolic date, J.Lo filed for divorce. The paperwork listed their separation date as April 26, 2024, meaning they'd been done for months while the world speculated. The pattern emerges. Here's where Ben's recent admission gets really interesting, because he's finally connecting dots he'd refused to see before. The public facade crumbled in slow motion, each new detail adding weight to what everyone already knew. J.Lo started posting throwback photos from their relationship with cryptic captions about self-love and moving forward. The kind of social media behavior that screams, "I'm fine," while clearly not being fine. Ben, in contrast, went radio silent on the personal front, throwing himself into work and dad duty. Her album and film, both centered on their grand romance, flopped commercially. The public wasn't interested in buying the fairy tale when the fairy tale was actively falling apart. There's something almost tragic about releasing art celebrating a love that's already dead, forcing her to promote it while privately processing the loss. But the real revelation in Ben's recent interviews is his acknowledgement of a pattern he's been repeating for 20 years. He left J.Lo the first time, in part, because the intensity of that relationship felt unsustainable. Then he married Garner, seeking stability and normalcy. That marriage gave him a decade and 3 children, but he sabotaged it through his actions. The nanny situation wasn't just a scandal. It was Ben running from commitment when things got too real, too domestic, too permanent. He'd chosen safety with Garner after the chaos of J.Lo, then destroyed that safety when it started feeling like a cage. What's particularly striking is how he's finally admitting that reuniting with J.Lo was possibly him running again. Running from the guilt of what he'd done to Garner, running from the boring stability of single fatherhood, running toward the excitement and validation that comes with being desired by one of the world's most beautiful women. He romanticized their past because it was easier than dealing with his present. The problems from 2004 never actually went away. They were still fundamentally incompatible people. He'd just convinced himself that age and maturity would fix what had always been broken. Jennifer Garner's shadow. Here's where it gets really interesting. Throughout Ben's marriage to J.Lo, Jennifer Garner remained a constant presence in his life. Not as a romantic threat, but as the mother of his children and his co-parenting partner. They were spotted together constantly, at kids' events, doing pickups and drop-offs, sometimes just grabbing coffee to discuss parenting decisions. For someone like J.Lo, who needs to be the center of her partner's universe, this had to be quietly maddening. Garner wasn't trying to cause problems. She was just being a good mom and maintaining a functional relationship with her ex-husband for their kids' sake. But there's a deeper layer here that Ben's now acknowledging. Garner represents the road not taken, the stability he threw away. Despite everything he put her through, the drinking, the affair, the years of instability, she maintained her grace and dignity. She co-parented effectively, never badmouthed him publicly, and even supported his sobriety journey. There's a story that during a rough patch in the Affleck-Lopez marriage, Garner drove Ben to J.Lo's house to work things out. It's either the most evolved co-parenting move in history or deeply strange, possibly both. What Ben's finally admitting is that he's spent years trying to recreate what he had with Garner while simultaneously being incapable of appreciating it when he had it. He wanted the excitement of J.Lo and the stability of Garner, not understanding that those things are often mutually exclusive. His kids, Violet, Serafina, and Samuel, had established routines and a stable co-parenting situation that worked. Adding J.Lo's twins, Max and Emma, into the mix, along with her very different parenting style and lifestyle, created friction nobody wanted to acknowledge publicly. Ben's confession. In late 2024, Ben sat down for an interview that caught people off guard with its honesty. He wasn't promoting a movie or doing damage control. He was simply talking, and what came out was more real than anyone expected. He admitted straight up that he'd thought he could handle it this time, that being 20 years older and wiser would make the difference. He'd romanticized their past, remembered the good parts, and convinced himself the problems had been about youth and bad timing rather than fundamental incompatibility. But then he said something that shifted the entire conversation. He talked about how reuniting with J.Lo was partly about running from the shame of what he'd done to his marriage with Garner. He'd destroyed something good through his own choices, his drinking, his affair, his inability to appreciate what he had. Getting back together with J.Lo felt like vindication, like proof that maybe he'd been in the wrong relationship all along. If he and J.Lo were meant to be, then maybe leaving Garner wasn't the disaster it appeared to be. Except that logic was flawed from the start. He acknowledged that he was using J.Lo as an escape from dealing with his own patterns. The problems in his marriage to Garner weren't really about Garner. They were about him, his addiction issues, his fear of genuine intimacy, his tendency to sabotage good things when they get too comfortable. Marrying J.Lo didn't fix those issues. It just put them in a different, more glamorous context. What he said next is what really mattered. He talked about wanting to believe in second chances, in the idea that love conquers all if you just try hard enough. But he'd learned, the hard way, that some relationships don't fail because people don't love each other enough. They fail because the people involved need fundamentally different things from life. J.Lo needs public affirmation, thrives in the spotlight, builds her entire identity around being seen and celebrated. Ben needs privacy, craves normalcy, does his best work when he's not constantly performing. Neither approach is wrong, but they're incompatible at a basic level. He said something particularly striking about deserving someone who can match her energy, acknowledging that he can't be that person. There's no resentment in the statement, just acceptance. He can't be a character in someone else's story anymore. Can't have his life turned into content for her next album or documentary. It's not about blame. It's about knowing his limits and finally respecting them. The addiction piece came up carefully, thoughtfully. He talked about maintaining his sobriety as his top priority, above career, above relationships, above everything. High-stress relationships pose a genuine risk to that, creating situations where old patterns resurface. He used a phrase that stuck with people about not being able to set himself on fire to keep someone else warm. It's the first time in his romantic history that he's prioritized his own well-being without guilt, without trying to be the hero who sacrifices everything for love. He took accountability in a way that felt genuine rather than performative. He admitted, knowing what he was getting into, that nobody forced him to remarry J.Lo. He'd seen who she was, how she lived, what being with her required. He'd thought he could adapt, thought love would be enough. Being wrong about that is on him, and he owned it clearly. But he also recognized that staying would have been worse, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is admit you can't give them what they need. In a subtle but significant moment, he referenced the value of stable and grounded relationships, clearly thinking about his years with Garner without saying her name. There's a recognition there of what he had versus what he chased, an understanding of why that first marriage lasted over a decade, while this one barely made 2 years. He's not saying marrying J.Lo was a mistake. He's saying he understands now the difference between flash and foundation, between passion and partnership. And he's done chasing fairy tales. Where they are now, Jennifer Lopez has handled the divorce with the same careful image management she applies to everything else in her life. She hasn't trashed Ben publicly, hasn't played the victim, hasn't done the scorched earth thing some celebrities resort to. Instead, she's let her art speak for her, released music and given interviews about choosing herself and recognizing patterns. There's heartbreak there, genuine disappointment that this wasn't her happy ending. The divorce is proceeding as amicably as any divorce involving massive wealth, and no prenup can proceed. Asset division is complicated, but they're being civil about it, handling things through lawyers without the public mudslinging that makes these situations even uglier. Both are focused on their respective children, trying to minimize the impact on the kids who didn't ask to be part of this very public drama. J.Lo has done what she always does when life knocks her down. She's thrown herself back into work mode, lining up projects, staying visible, reminding everyone she's still here and still relevant. She'll be fine because she's always fine, because being fine is the only option she allows herself. Ben is in full dad mode, the place where he seems most comfortable and least performative. He's doing quiet projects, staying close to his kids, building the kind of life he should have been building all along. He looks more at peace in paparazzi photos now than he did throughout most of his marriage, which tells you everything about whether he made the right choice. The lesson they're both learning is that you can't recapture the past. Bennifer worked in 2002 because they were different humans then. Trying to resurrect it 20 years later was always going to be complicated by everything they'd become in the interim, all the mistakes they'd made, all the patterns they'd established. What this all means: Ben Affleck's willingness to speak honestly about his divorce, to connect it to his pattern of running from one relationship to another, represents something rare in celebrity culture. He's not blaming his struggles with addiction entirely, though they played a role. He's not blaming the media, though they made everything harder. He's not even blaming J-Lo for being exactly who she's always been. He's admitting that he made choices based on avoidance rather than growth, using nostalgia and grand gestures to run from the hard work of actually changing. This is what actual growth looks like, not the Instagram version with sunset photos and inspirational quotes, but the hard version where you admit you were wrong and accept the consequences. Ben seems more at peace with this divorce than his first one, probably because this time he's not running from it into the next relationship. He's standing still in his truth, processing it, learning from it. The bigger picture here transcends celebrity gossip. It's about how we repeat patterns until we're forced to see them, how loving someone doesn't automatically mean you should build a life with them, how running from shame just creates more of it. Ben hurt Garner through his choices, then tried to absolve that guilt by proving his relationship with J-Lo was destiny. When that didn't work either, he finally had to face the uncomfortable truth that maybe the problem was never about choosing the wrong woman. Maybe it was about not dealing with his own issues first. Sometimes, the truth is disappointingly simple. It just didn't work. Not because of scandal or betrayal or dramatic implosion this time, but because two people wanted fundamentally different things from their daily existence. They tried, gave it their best shot, and it still wasn't enough. There's something almost mature about accepting that without needing to create villains or victims. They were both good people in a bad situation, and they're both better off apart. That's not the fairy tale anyone wanted, but it's honest. And maybe after everything, honesty is the happy ending Ben needed all along.